Today's Life Bonds Chit Chat, Larry Neymar, the co-founder of E! Television, founding partner of Maton Global Entertainment Group, primary consultant to Microsoft's development of interactive TV applications, recognized by Forbes as the national model for local cable television programming. I could go on and on. This man is a legend. Larry, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to sit down and have a chit chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
You miss me?
Oh, yeah, tremendously.
Can you believe it's been a year since we
started? Yeah, it's been a while.
I mean, if you would have said a year ago we would be facing what we're facing, we could have not made this up.
That's for sure. It's pretty surreal.
It is surreal. I know. It's crazy. You have literally propelled us into pop culture. You've been in the industry over 45 years, almost as long as my roots are now. I'm looking like the Tiger King. Have you seen the Tiger King?
I have indeed.
Do you like it? Let's get your thoughts on Tiger King.
I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I didn't like the last thing they did. But I think the episodes of Tiger King were good, but then kind of that last thing seemed forced and not as genuine as the show itself was.
I really think you might be brilliant. Has anyone ever said that?
No, not really. Although I shouldn't say that because my mother used to constantly make fun of me and tell me that you're no Einstein when I would have my crazy ideas. But actually, last year I just went on the board of the Einstein Foundation. So, maybe there is something there.
Have you had your IQ tested? I'm not kidding. I'm being dead.
Yeah. I have a very, very high IQ. And in high school, they would send me to psychiatrists to find out why I'm such an underperformer.
Okay, well, that's my next question. You were raised in Brooklyn. Mother worked for social services and your dad drove for Pepsi?
Yeah, my father was a Pepsi Cola truck driver. My mother worked for the New York City Department of Social Services or welfare.
Both working, and they're trying to raise you, who's a very bright child. As people are watching, I know there are many parents that are wondering what to do with their bright children and how to, especially now these days with quarantine, how to help them become the brightest that they can be. So do you have any words of wisdom for parents that have really bright kids that think out of the box?
Well, I mean, I think you really want to expose your kids, and what I've actually done with mine is just to the widest range of stuff. Not necessarily all educational stuff, not like sit in your room and study, for 6 hours a day, but, I took my kids to cooking classes with me and, sporting events and all that kind of stuff. So I think the more well-rounded that you try and make them, the more they're going to be able to process new information and be able to make sense of it, in the modern day. Interesting because I took, when I grew up, my parents, were immigrants, one from Russia and the other from Turkey. And, their aspirations were, I would grow up and get a civil service job and get a pension and, doing that. I mean, entrepreneurship was not part of the picture. I disappointed them by going off on my own until I kind of showed them I was doing okay. But when I started, and you look at Hollywood, which is kind of where I've ended up, people are either creatives,
right,
or they're the business side people. They're the technologists. And it's very rare you find people that have two of the three. And I guess what makes me a little bit different is I have three of the three. I was an economics degree. I created the channel and everything, on it originally. And, I spent 2.5 years as the primary consultant to Microsoft for interactive TV strategy, which I got to work with all the deep science guys and got to understand technology. So in Hollywood, I'm an unusual animal in that I kind of pull those three disciplines together.
Current CEO and president of Mayton.
Mayton was a company that originally started to do programming for China in Mandarin language. And then that expanded out to be, beyond just TV programming for China. It's TV programming about China or anything that relates to it. Mm-hmm. And we've expanded that. We now have a film division. We have a division that works with Western companies who are trying to set up business in China. And then we started a film fund, a financing vehicle to finance films, whether they be in Chinese or not.
Doing documentary in China with Mayton, is that something that you guys are working on or trying to do with all of the COVID and Corona and everything going on?
Yeah, well, we did. We actually have two projects that kind of fall into that. One was we're doing a show called Explore China, which is in English. It's Hal Sparks, who was one of the hosts of Talk Soup. Back in my
Which I should have been a host. I wanted to be Greg Kinnear, in case you're wondering. I know you're surprised, and I should have been Greg Kinnear, but go ahead.
Yeah, over the years, we've had almost 20,000 people, apply.
You're not the only one that should have been a Talk Soup host.
And Greg was actually the first host we hired. Yeah.
And that's going to do it for this Talk Soup, folks. I'm Greg Kinnear. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
He was great. Great.
The first hosts were my favorites, Greg Kinnear and Julie Moran, who went on to do Entertainment Tonight, and Katie Wagner, who did Lifestyles, and Mark DiCarlo, who did Studs, and Suzanne Kay, which was Diane Carroll's daughter.
How many hosts have there been?
Well, I don't count them anymore, but originally we were looking for 5. And, people say, oh, you were very lucky to have those great hosts. Well, none of those hosts were on TV before. We picked them. So that was all their first gig. And we put almost 7,000 people on tape to pick those first 5. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe I might not have made the casting cut, but I should have tried. Okay. Yeah, so back to China. I like my sidebars.
It was a good gig. Everybody, got a lot of notice, and when, everybody went on to do bigger and better stuff than that.
Which is fun. Okay, so I'm curious about the documentary with China.
So the first one, so it's going to be, it's kind of not so much about history, but it explores the pop culture. All my stuff is pop culture related. So it's, we go there and we look at the food, the music, the wine, and all these things with a particular emphasis on, kind of show the human side of it. Forget the politics. The politics are between our government and their government. There's nothing we're going to do about it. But there's so many myths that exist. Like I would come home from, let's say a month in China, and my friends, in LA who are supposed to be reasonably sophisticated, they would go, oh, Larry, where do you want to eat? You must be starving. And I'm going like, why would I be starving? They go, well, you were in China for a month. I go, do you think they have no food? They go, no. But you had Chinese food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
And, I just don't have the heart to explain to them that probably next to New York, Shanghai is now the best food city in the world. I could get any kind of food I want in China. And in a lot of cases, Italian food, I get better Italian food in China than I get in LA. Not as good as New York, but certainly better than LA.
Yeah.
And, so that's one show. So we were planning on shooting 20 episodes all around different cities in China. And we shot 13, and we have those in the can, and we're doing the post-production on those. But then came the virus, and we had to put the production side on hold. So we're doing the editing, and we'll get that ready. It'll be ready in the summer, and that's fine. English and meant for a U.S. platform, whether it be a broadcast or one of the digitals.
Okay.
Then another show we're doing is called Explore the World, a show made for China in Mandarin language, where we go to places we think would be interested in young, affluent Chinese travelers, which they are now the largest outbound tourist group in the world. And kind of look at those places again, from the point of view, like, what is that audience going to be interested in? Again, very different because, again, a lot of these places they're being exposed to for the first time.
Right.
Chinese who now all of a sudden can travel and they have money to travel. And so we were in the midst of shooting that. We started in the Balkans, and we actually shot the episodes in Croatia.
Wow.
And we were supposed to move from there to do Serbia, Montenegro, and then move on to the Middle East. But because of the virus, we had to put that on hold. So that's sitting there. And, first of all, Chinese can't travel yet. And second, a lot of these countries are not really ready to accept Chinese tourists. So, we'll resume that and get that on the air next year sometime.
And regarding the article, what really caught my attention, and I'm going a little deep, but that's okay because you're used to me. You're used to it, right?
I am indeed.
He said, I'm of the belief that the world will never be the same, not necessarily better or worse, but different. There are many things that people were afraid of because most people resist rather than embrace change. I think that if we learn anything from this nightmare, it is that we are all one, the human race, and we are dependent on each other and need to put political and ideological differences aside and focus on what's good for us as humans and for our planet and everything in it. I love that you said that because I really and truly believe that we all have the same basic needs. We have unique giftings. We have our experiences. And looking at your experiences are so unique to you, down to now being on the Einstein board. And I would love for you to elaborate on your heart in regards to this quote.
Yeah, well, I myself got very bored with doing E-type programming. And, for me, it changed because the company grew so big so quickly. And I found myself spending more time doing the business side than the creative side, and that bothered me. So, but, I've kind of focused myself outside of the U.S. Probably for the last 2 decades. I've been doing a lot of stuff in Europe, Eastern Europe, and, more recently, China. I had a big show in Russia for 10 years and stuff. And, for some reason, I have this ability to look at, other cultures, places I didn't grow up in, and to be able to stand a little bit back, but to really delve into and try and understand them, and then create content that's relevant to those countries and those people, which is an unusual, capability. What I found is that 90% of things, that drive people, we're all the same. I mean, the Russians are the same, the Chinese are what they want for themselves. They want security, and they want food, and they want shelter, and they want their kids to have a better life, education and arts. 90% is similar, 10% is different, and different because of the way people grow up. And,
Yes.
I've just always felt, even when I was doing stuff in Russia, we have all this stuff about them. But Russia, even when they had food shortages, people would welcome me into their house. They'd give me the last piece of cheese in their refrigerator. And, I just find the people in every place I go, the people are just wonderful, and they try and be wonderful for the most part.
Right.
It's when you get to political stuff, and, that's where the differences are. But that's a small portion of, what makes up these people.
Right.
And then when I got to China, I found, the same thing. We keep saying, oh, they're so different than us. They're not so different than us.
Right.
I mean, they want for their kids and, what they want for themselves are all very, very similar. Peace, I mean, there's no people countries may want war because it's from a political system, but there's no people that want war.
Right.
There's no people that want a pandemic to, wipe out any portion of the population. So, I think we really do need to start realizing we're more alike than when we're different, and start focusing on that. And then the second part is, after we learn to be nice to each other, we better learn to be nice to the planet, or we ain't gonna have a place to be. Did a lot of stuff for Wild Aid there, which was to help dispel myths that certain cultures have about, in China, eat ground up tiger bones and you'll be a more virile male. You
Yep.
know, and they, because they created a market, people go and kill tigers. And of course it's not true, and elephant tusks and all of that stuff. And so, we got involved in taking our, let's say, unsold advertising inventory. We would have a show in China and stuff, and we would donate it so that we could do anti-shark finning PSA stuff. I mean, here you have, Chinese people who eat literally every part of every animal on the planet. But when it comes down to shark's fin, it was a way of showing that you had money, is you'd have a wedding and you would serve shark's fin soup, and they would literally kill a shark, take the fin, and throw the fish back in the water and take just the fin. We're going, if you were eating the whole fish, it's a little more justifiable. 2 years ago, they killed 70 million sharks to get the fin.
Make-A-Wish, and how Make-A-Wish impacted your son, who was diagnosed with brain cancer 16 years ago?
My son John, when he was 15, was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer. And, the prognosis was not terribly good. He's fine. He's a miracle kid.
Can I ask how they found it, or how they knew it was there?
Well, it's his mom and I, were separated, but she called me one day and said, I think John is either drinking or doing drugs. And I said, no. John is not the kind of kid. That's not him.
Right.
I said, what's the problem? She said, I'm watching him try and do his homework and he can't get the pencil on the line. I said, well, maybe he's got a problem with his eyesight. Take him to an eye doctor. So she did, and they said, oh yeah, you got a problem with your eyes, you need glasses, blah blah blah. And he got that, and then he still wasn't functioning properly, and he started getting worse from when she first noticed it. He started getting numbness in his right side, and his speech, he was repeating himself and stuff. So she went back and said, listen, that something is wrong here beyond just a prescription for glasses. And they tested him and said, well, he's got a muscle disorder in his eye. We'll have to do surgery and tighten the muscle. And she accepted that and went home. But when she started doing a lot of web research, she went back to the doctor and said, listen, 80% of what you're saying makes sense, but 20% doesn't. Can you test him? And they said, nah, lady, you're putting the kid through a lot of stuff for no reason. We know what's wrong, and it's a muscle disorder. And anyway, so finally, she pestered him enough, and they tested him, and sure enough, it was a brain tumor. And when we went to a specialist who specialized in that form of cancer, he said, well, he goes, in one sense, you're very lucky, because normally we never see these kids until autopsy, because they're always misdiagnosed as having a muscle disorder in the eye. And what happens is the tumor grows over a duct in the brain. They die of brain failure before they die of the cancer. So, so that's how they caught it. And, it's her insistence on testing them. And we got him into an experimental program. Prognosis wasn't good, and he, got identified by Make-A-Wish Foundation, who I love. And they gave John, they said, okay, tell us 3 things that you wish for, and we'll try and make one of them happen. And, one of his wishes was, I want to be backstage at a Metallica concert. And they actually made it happen. They teamed him and his mom and his sister up with Sean Penn, and they were backstage at Metallica. And, and John, being 15, was, just thrilled to death. And the envy of all his friends in school.
I love all the heart stuff. And I loved how you were talking about remaining hopeful and supporting each other. Elaborate on your thoughts on us not being alone and why that matters.
Yeah, well, you look at it, we're all going through pretty much the same thing. Rich, poor, U.S., China, Russia, doesn't make a difference. I mean, being confined to your home over a period of time pretty much wears on people the same way, no matter who they are or what they are. if you got a lot of money, you can't find toilet paper, and if you don't have any money, you can't find toilet paper. I mean,
Right.
so we're all sharing this experience, and I think one of the things that I think is coming out of this, and I hope this is true, is that I think there is more of a realization that maybe our values and our aspirations weren't what they should be, and and we should be more on realizing that we are a human race and we are living on this planet, and that political differences aside, we better learn to love and respect each other, and not criticize the differences between us, but rather embrace them. I mean, that's what I find charming about travel, is if every place I went to had the same mall with the same stores and stuff, it would be boring as hell. I mean, it's wonderful going to these places and seeing what's different and learning about what's different.
Well, that's what I love. You're such a lifelong learner. I feel like you have probably been inquisitive your whole life. All the experiences you've been in probably got you in trouble a few times, I'm guessing. Just say.
Yeah, and most people, like I say, if I have any skill at all, it's I can go to some place and really stand back and learn, kind of what those people are about in the popular pop culture, and be able to translate that into media vehicles and stuff like that. And people, there's nothing really in my background that indicates why that should be.
It's who you are.
But when I was one, this is true, and my dear mother, who I love deeply, unfortunately is not with us any longer, but she did drop me on my head. My mom, she was great and everything, but she put me on a table to change my clothes, and the phone rang, and my mom would go, just wait there, don't do anything, and she would go to the phone, and of course I'd fall off the table. Yeah, I've been inquisitive about everything. To probably the point of being annoying. I read 50 magazines a month. I read them in digital form now. Probably 2 or 3 books, and I mean on all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, I know how to cross stitch now because I was working on something, on some TV project that involved hobbies and crafts for women, and I learned how to sew and cross stitch. Because I figured if I don't know how to do it, how am I going to translate this into a media,
I'm so impressed. Can you make a skirt or a top?
I make eyeglass cases, like that. And while I don't shoot guns, I made sure I learned about guns, and I just like to know about all kinds of different stuff.
That being said, do you get bored sometimes if people aren't interesting enough?
Yeah.
And what do you do about that when you're like, okay, I'm done, like right now?
I typically I become much more social now. My PR people and stuff have kind of forced me into being a little more social. I was a little bit of a hermit in LA.
Yeah.
Because, while being the founder of E is great, it's also, people don't believe it, but it does have its downside, because every place I would go, I mean, my interests are broad. I mean, there are a lot more important things going on in the world than like what my next show is going to be. And, I'd be interested in talking about all this stuff. And, people would go, well, could you read my script? And I'm going, the world is falling apart. We've got COVID-19. We've got, problems with, Iran and North Korea and all this stuff. Who cares about what my next project is? I like cooking more than I like television.
I noticed your cooking pictures. I'm so impressed.
Cooking is actually my replacement for therapy. It doesn't make a difference how bad my day has been or what's gone wrong and stuff. I can go in the kitchen and I just lose myself.
I love it.
Not so much the eating, but it's the process.
Are you drinking your protein shakes?
No, I'm kind of not doing protein shakes anymore, but I am paying attention to, getting my veggies and my vitamins and stuff. And I do a lot more protein than I do carbs.
Okay, good. Okay, for a cookbook, Paul Prudhomme?
Oh, of course.
The healthy version? Have you ever cooked out of it?
Yeah, I've literally got all the Pauls.
Okay, have you done the sweet pepper cream shrimp out of the one for the road? I just made it 2 nights ago.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, you have to. That's like top it on your list. Like it's like you have to do it this weekend with a glass of white wine. It's so good.
Oh, okay.
Dome. Sweet pepper cream. Do you like shrimp?
I love shrimp. Shrimp is my favorite food.
Okay, you have to cook this. And let me know if you have any questions because there's a lot of steps and you have to be very methodical.
Last week I did broiled scallops in a caviar cream sauce made from a champagne reduction.
What?
There you go.
I don't even know how to compute all that in my head and break it down to what that would even taste like.
It was pretty amazing. Like? It's nothing you could point to. It's unique.
Okay, then this sweet pepper cream shrimp is going to be nothing. Although you do have to add dry milk, which is kind of hard to find right now. But that's a whole nother show. That's the cooking show you're going to do. This is bizarre, but I actually did 4 episodes of a cooking show in China for Beijing TV. Because they were amazed that, the white kid knew how to cook Chinese food as good as they do. You know why? It's because you're smart. That's why. And creative. You're the left and the right brain mix. Well, some people refer to it as being anal, but yeah. Well, I didn't say it. You said it. No, I've been referred to it. I love back to this article. Remaining hopeful, supporting each other. We are all impacted by this. I love it. It hits home that every person matters. And I love that you're comforting us in the fact that, okay, we're not going to run out of food. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. Yeah. And the last tip I love is that you were just saying, we're going to find answers. I feel like that is extremely encouraging. Yeah, I think, you look at what happened in China. I mean, look, we can criticize the government there and their ways as much as possible. But, sometimes, there is a benefit of having a strong government who, may not be looking at doing what's politically correct, but is doing what, should be done, which is just basically shut up, stay at home, don't go out, and we could have done that a little bit earlier, would have not got rid of the virus, obviously, but we probably would have saved some lives if we took a stronger thing. It's not like, hey, if you feel like wearing a mask, it's like you will wear a mask and you will not go out, and so, sometimes, having that strong arm is necessary. But I think, just our, traveling around the world and different places, I think, you're seeing every country now focusing on, the vaccination issue, the isolation of the virus and, finding if, there are antibodies and stuff like that. So I think in very short order, we're going to see, if I had to guess, it's going to be Germany or Israel, where medical research is just crazy off the hook. I think you'll see them come up with answers. Now, it's got to go through testing and it's got to go through all of that stuff. So we're not talking about next week, but I think you'll find something very promising happening within the next 60 days. Then it'll go into the testing in phase. So, we're a year away, but at least we know it's coming. How are you handling the quarantine and the changes with stopping production? Yeah, well, it brought all of that stuff to a screeching halt, all our China stuff, because China was the first on lockdown, and we're on lockdown, so our crews can't travel and stuff. But we were lucky in that we actually had a project, an English language project that we had worked on with a group here in LA called USA TV, a TV drama series called Nova Vita, which we designed for Netflix or Amazon or one of those. And we had it all shot, which was great because then we figured we would do the post-production kind of slow over the summer and take it out next fall. And when this happened, all these broadcasters are looking and seeing that there's no production in the pipeline. And they're going, after our series run out, what do we do?
And so we rushed the post-production through on that series so that, we have one new series coming out.
You're adjusting.
I take care of my vegetable garden. I've organized my pantry and my closets. And plus for me, it's easy because a lot of my work was remote anyway. So, every day I talk to the China office or, our partners in New York or in Europe or wherever they are. And, so we were working remotely for years. So it's really not been a big difference for me.
Right. That's good. And you're staying healthy. You're going to make me a top. You're going to sew me a blouse. Right?
An eyeglass case.
Okay, I'll take an eyeglass case. Do you monogram too?
No, I don't monogram.
You already know this, but your words have authority. I really feel like when people are with you, they feel like they've made a friend. You have a brilliant mind that's coupled with a humble spirit. Thank you for your time. I know it's very valuable, so I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly, and I really do appreciate it. And I hope that once this is all edited, that people will be encouraged after they watch it in whatever way, shape, or form, whatever message they needed to receive for today.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Well, I really do appreciate it. And I do want my eyeglass case for my sunglasses.
Okay.
Thank you. You're awesome.